And the more I talked to him about it and the more abusive he came, I began to realize that it wasn't just me that he had started this, but he had did this in the past.
I wish your boys and girls wouldn't call each other names anymore. You know those little childish names like Four Eyes, Stupid Dummy.
I wanna live my life your way, more like you, Jesus, every day.
A very serious topic today on ID-21. It occurs every 9 seconds in this country. It's called domestic violence.
We'll be visiting with the director of a domestic violence center here in Nashville, and it's one of only 2 or 3 places that women can go for help.
Right. And later in the show, Lil Markie will be here on ID-21, and later on, Susan Meredith will sing us a song. So you stay with us.
He just hauled off and hit me in my left eye. And I can remember flipping from the head of the bed to the foot of the bed because I had told him he really hurt me.
Domestic violence is one of the tragedies of today's family. Ernestine Davis knows the seriousness of this problem firsthand, and she shares her story of physical abuse on the Life Matters segment.
San Diego emergency. What's the San Diego emergency?
My mommy and Daddy are having a fight.
Is she hitting her?
What? I'm talking to the police, Mommy. Stop it!
The way that he would be so kind and gentle with his sister, it really impressed me to see a man do that. You know, I had not seen it too much. We were married for about a year before I had to leave due to the abusive setting.
What do you think the major reason is that they stay?
The major reason they stay in a relationship is the fear that they have. A woman is 75% greater risk once she tries to leave than if she stays in the relationship. So fear is the underlying cause of her staying as long as she does.
I never did like to argue. I didn't want to argue with him, and I would not argue with him. I just let him have his way. He thought I had some money in the bank, and at the time I really didn't have any. I had paid the taxes on the home, and he thought I had lied to him. I tried to lay down because I would sleep during the day. Well, I guess about an hour or so after I had fallen asleep, he woke me up and said, "There you go, I know you have some money," and just hauled off and hit me in my left eye. And I can remember flipping from the head of the bed to the foot of the bed. I began to realize that it wasn't just me that he had started this, but he had did this in the past.
It is generational. It continues, and it's just a cycle that repeats itself.
I had kind of alienated myself because I didn't want people to know that this marriage wasn't working. I got up the next day and called, and she gave me the directions to the shelter. And I was scared. I was really scared because I didn't know what to expect. I did not know what to do. And I showed up and had the initial interview with Rudy. So I started to calm down, and then afterwards I began to feel a little bit at ease because I was finally able to find some place that I felt was pretty safe. But there is this fear that only a person who has been abused can understand. as much as you don't want to be afraid, you are afraid, and it gets inside and takes control of everything.
Most abusers, I think, would really want to change, but domestic violence is such a serious problem. It's as loud as a gunshot, or it can be as silent as a tear. We need to put a stop to it.
What's going on?
They're having a fight because this has been going on forever and ever.
My father had some alcoholic friends, and one of his friends molested me.
When I knew we were going to be doing this show on domestic violence, I knew that I had to have Carol Fox on the show to talk about her story. You tell us, what happened in your home?
As a little girl of 2, I lived in a home where my father was an alcoholic, and my mother worked full-time as a registered nurse, and I saw very little of either of them. The time I spent with my dad was a time that was uncomfortable for me because I was needy and lonely and had an older brother who was outside playing quite a bit and not around the house very much. So the acceptance I found and the love that I felt was in the arms of my father in a very ungodly, uncomfortable fashion.
How old were you then? How old were you when this began?
I believe it started when I was around the age of 2.
When do you remember, as a child, feeling molested?
Well, my father had some alcoholic friends, and one of his friends molested me. And that's the first real memory I have of it. And I felt like because it was somebody outside of my home, there was something different about it. It must be wrong. And I started feeling more and more uncomfortable about everything that was taking place. And when my father found out about his friend, he got very, very angry. And that told me something, too, as a little girl. I was probably about the age of 5 or 6 when that took place.
But what about standing up, a little child, trying to tell anybody about somebody she loves, like your father, and you loved your father?
Yes.
But do you stand up and tell about him when you're a little girl and being molested by your own father?
I don't think I ever told anybody. I don't think I really understood until I was about 12 or 13 years old that it was wrong. Because that was the only love that I was receiving. The rest of my family really didn't know how to love. The words "I love you" were not expressed in my home.
Not much affection.
No.
And how was your relationship with your mother?
It was distant because of her work hours. Obviously, as a little girl, I was in school until 2:30 or 3, and my mom was at work from 3 until midnight.
At some point, all of this ended with your father.
I
when
think
was that?
I think it was when I started to have an interest in boys. And it was just like a light went off in my head that this touching that he was doing was wrong. And the very instant that that light went off, I just told my father to leave me alone.
And did he?
And he did. He did. There was never any fight or, any struggling or anything like that. But then, instead of it being a physical sexual abuse, it became more of a mental abuse. I think it's very important for parents to learn how to show love, especially if they don't know how. I really didn't learn how until I met my husband, Mark, when we were 16. And he just wouldn't quit telling me he loved me. And
So you had to marry him.
I just had to.
You say this in such a soft, tender way, and yet there must have been fear and anger and even rage at some point. Were you fearful and angry? I mean, to the point where you hated your parents?
Very much so. I resented the fact because I felt like my mother must have known, and why was she not helping me? And when I did talk to her several years ago and ask her about this, she said she had no knowledge of it at all. And I have to believe that because my mother's always been a very honest person. And but I grew up wondering why I wasn't being helped. I felt like I was thrown in the bottom of the ocean and no one was there to help me. And growing up that way was my belief that that's the way all little girls were. It wasn't an unusual thing at all until that light went off. And once that light went off, all this rage started building up in me because of the fear of the unknown, the fear of people and men in particular, all the uncleanness I felt, the things that were so special to a young woman were stolen from me. And I didn't know how to deal with all of that. To say that I hate my father would be an absolute lie, because years ago God gave me a way to be able to forgive him. And he had already passed away. And I was able just to release all the bitterness and all the anger and all the frustration. And if my father were sitting right where you are today, I'd wrap my arms around him, hug him, and kiss him. And I would let him know that I'm okay. What's done is done. But there's so many other people that have very similar things happening in their home that it needs to be dealt with. It needs to be uncovered.
Needs to be stopped.
It does.
Carol, you have such a wonderful attitude about this, and I know that part of that attitude has come with growing in a household with actually a little Markie Fox, who is a wonderful man named Mark Fox, and Larry is going to talk with him about a little bit more about this story and how he came into it. And we thank you very much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
And thank you, Susan. We have Carol's better half with us right now, Mark Fox. Glad to have you with us.
Thanks, Larry. But you
Otherwise-
may get an argument out of
That's
Carol
right.
for that.
Otherwise known as Lil Markie.
That's it.
Lil Markie?
Lil.
Who is Lil Markie?
Well, Lil Markie is what we call live animation. It is a character that Carol and I developed years ago through a child's voice that I used from watching the old Alvin and the Chipmunks program.
One of your favorites, I bet.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I mimicked the voice and learned how to speak like a child, regardless of my old age now. And but we've developed this personality around dealing with family issues and children's issues, problems in the home, challenges as a single parent, and loneliness of children and dealing with self-worth.
So you use his voice to communicate with kids, to get a message
Kids,
across.
adults,
Yeah.
live in concert really is basically geared more towards the older age, and the tapes and the videos and that kind of thing is more towards the kids.
Okay, let's give the viewer an example of this. This is from your video cassette entitled Mark Fox. Nice picture of yourself on the front there.
Original.
That's real nice.
Thanks.
Let's take a look at it. We'll look at the clip entitled I Wish My House by Mark Fox.
Now, you're not looking at Lil Markie, though. You're looking at the other guy, Mark Fox. The reason why is because I live in this section right in here. This is my home. This is a 2-bedroom condominium. In fact, I know there's a few of you in the real estate business, too, out there. Oh, well. Oh, I wish things were different in this world. I have a lot of wishes. I wish your boys and girls wouldn't call each other names anymore. You know those little childish names like Four Eyes, Stupid Dummy. The Bible says, let each esteem the other better than themselves. That's most important, you know. I have a lot of wishes. I wish I had a lifetime supply of Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's what God created on the 8th day. I wish you only had to go to school one day a year.
Bunch of scholars out there.
Wish Daddy only had to go to work 1 hour a week.
Yeah, that's good preaching.
Wish Mommy didn't have to go to work. We're tired of coming home to an empty house. Opening up the door and walking through the living room into the kitchen, opening up the cupboard and taking down those cookies Mommy bought at the store called Almost Home. We want the real thing, hot and with cold milk. I wish there were no such thing as divorce.
This is a dream.
that should be a reality. My thoughts are filled with special dreams that only God can see. It's a happy place with Mom and Dad. It's us, a real family. We laugh together, sing a song, and play a game or two. We kiss and hug and pray each night. Our day ends with I love you. I wish that at the end of every night, the last words spoken in every home would be these. In Jesus' name, amen.
That's some good stuff. And funny stuff, too. You do this quite often?
I have for 21 years.
And making a fortune at it, I bet.
Oh.
Would like to.
Well, no, I don't care about the money aspect, but God provides and we're
But it's
happy.
truly a ministry, isn't it?
It is. It is. A lot of people will listen and they will ponder, and many will remember things that they haven't thought of in a lot of years.
Right. Susan spoke with your wife a little while ago about the sexual abuse that she experienced as a child.
Right.
How does that affect you as her husband? What baggage does that bring along?
Well, I've had to deal with the emotions. One of the things that was unique to me is I had to not put my wife in the perspective as an adult woman, but to think of her as a child. That was difficult, and to me it was something that I really had to deal with, because for a time, very short time, thankfully, but I would look and I'd say, why did you let this happen? As though I was speaking from adult to adult. And she, through tenderness, said, I was a little girl. I didn't know anything better. I had to deal with that and come to terms with that. Then I had to come to terms with her father and her mother, and not allowing bitterness to come into my heart towards them, and to try to understand from their perspective why they allowed themselves, and especially her father, to behave in such a fashion to cause such damage. We have a little statement we've used for years. It's okay to hurt, but it's wrong to live in it. In other words, not to make that my whole life. It happened. We have to deal with things in life, and we move on.
Weren't you mad, though?
I was angry.
At her father?
Very angry.
And just
very
wanted to,
angry.
you know.
I did. I wanted to. There was a part of me, but that's okay. That's a natural emotion. That's something that doesn't have to be squelched, but it does have to be dealt with and communicated and moved on through.
Appreciate you being with us. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, we'll listen to Susan Meredith sing a song entitled, Show Me How to Love. Stay with us.
Show me how to love in the true meaning of the word.
The song mentions battered women. And when I thought about the song and thought about the line in the song, it says, show me how to love. And the thing that we don't do enough of is love each other.
You didn't have to leave the glory of heaven, yet you became a simple man. You didn't have to serve the poor and afflicted, yet you knelt and healed our brokenness. No greater love has been given. You became the ultimate sacrifice, creating me the heart of a servant. May this be my one desire. Show me how to love in the true meaning of the word, and teach me to sacrifice, expecting nothing in return. I want to live my life your way, more like you, Jesus, every day. My words are not enough. Show me how to love. I met a bruised and battered woman, her hungry children on the street, and then I heard you say with your still small voice, What have you done for such as these? Consume me with a burning fire that melts away my complacency. Let me be moved with love and compassion. May you see your life in me. Oh, show me how to love in the true meaning of the word, and teach me to sacrifice, expecting nothing in return. 'Cause I want to live my life your way, more like you, Jesus, every day. My words are not enough. Show me how to love. Open up my eyes that I might truly see more and more and more and more of you and less of me. Find loving the unlovable and touching the untouchable. May my actions speak louder than my words. Show me how to love in the true meaning of the word, and teach me to sacrifice, expecting nothing in return. I want to live my life your way, more like you, Jesus, every day. My words are not enough. Show me how to love. My words are not enough. Show me how to love. Show me how to love.
Well, that's our show today. Hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we're going to focus on some young people. You hear so much in the media about bad kids, but we're going to talk to and with some good kids.
There are good kids out there, and some of those good kids are with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Right.
And they're going to be talking about some of the, they have a lot of peer pressure,
Yes.
they have a lot of temptation, and they're going to talk about how they cope with that.
All right. Also on the show, we'll talk to one of the winningest college basketball coaches in the nation, and you'll meet some blind wrestlers.
Blind wrestlers.
That's correct.
All right, that sounds like a good show.
It is going to be a good show. I'll be watching.
Yeah, I'll be watching.
Okay.
You'll be watching.
And we'll see you next week. So long.
Good night, honey. Good night, Mommy.
Good night, buddy.
Good night, Daddy. Those are hugs and kisses. Instead of the last words being in many families, if I tell you to get in that bed one more time, so help me, I'm going to count to 18,000. I wish mommies and daddies would quit learning how to count. That's what I wish. That's what